Going on to your first proper band, which was Lion.
Yeah.
How did that come about? There was a couple of Brits in the band.
One. Well, actually, there was a couple prior to me that they had.
Right.
They had some. What happened was, I'll make it a quick story. Mark Edwards, the drummer, was from Steeler. He had kind of put Steelers together around Yngwie Malmsteen, and then when Yngwie left and went to Alcatraz, he wanted a new band, and he found a singer in Cal Swan, who was from Tamworth. I'm not sure exactly where that is.
It's in the Midlands.
Okay. And so Cal came to Los Angeles via Mark, and they wanted to put a band together. And they had, I think maybe in the beginning, they brought a couple guys. They brought Steve Gibbs. The guys were from Titan, actually. A couple guys from Titan, the band, which was one of the new wave of
British heavy metal.
Yeah.
I struggle with that. New wave of British heavy metal bands, yeah.
So those guys came over, and then they split, and then that's when they wanted to find. That's when they found me,
right.
And I got a call and saying that they had come and seen me play, and that they really thought it would be great for the band, and most importantly, they had the next David Coverdale,
right,
in Cal Swan,
yeah.
And I didn't know who David Coverdale was. I didn't.
Okay.
This was like.
Well, Whitesnake not big in the States by that time.
Not yet.
Right.
Not, and I mean, some people knew about him. I guess you could get the records, but it wasn't. They definitely hadn't popped yet, And this was '84, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it was just about Slide In, and was just about to come out.
Yeah.
And that's the first song I ever heard from them that was on the radio and stuff. But Cal had their whole back catalog, so he really was like, we had a song called Come On, and I was like, that's a random title, but of course Whitesnake had a song called Come On. And we had some grooves that were similar to stuff like Ready and Willing, and it was, Lion was very much influenced by bands like Whitesnake and Status Quo and Thin Lizzy, stuff like that. And a lot of that, I mean, I didn't know about Status Quo. I didn't know about Slade. I never heard of, he's like, yeah, Slade's amazing. It's like live.
So through Cal, you found out about a lot more British bands.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the Whitesnake stuff definitely stuck because it was really cool. It had that, those kinds of chord progressions. It was a Slade song, Lock Up Your Daughters, right?
Yeah.
So Lock Up Your
Daughters. That was one of
Daughters.
the later Slade songs.
Okay. We covered that on a record, and I loved the chords. And then later, I recognized that those were similar chords to Fool for Your Lovin'.
Right. Okay. I never noticed that. I shall check that out later on. Yeah.
So. Yeah. It's like. Anyway, same progression.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Forgive me,
I'm like you jet lagged.
Yeah, we just got in day before yesterday, and our first gig, so we're getting our legs together, and
you played a 2.5-hour show last night, and then travelled up the country to sunny Blackpool. That's absolutely throwing it down.
It's kind of traditional. I mean, we arrived and it was sunny. I thought this is very different than what I expected for the UK at this time of year.
Yeah,
mind you, you guys had
made up for your expectations.
You guys had a blistering summer last year.
Yeah,
so that was
cool.
It was
good last year. Download last year. Download was amazing all week, and it usually rains at Download all 3 days. It usually rains. Last year, the sun was shining all 3 days. It was great.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah. So if you get a sunny Download, we get a good summer.
There you go. Well, both times I played Download was
I've seen you twice at Download, and it rained both times.
Well, no, Whitesnake was
also with Dead Days it rained.
Dead Days it rained off and on. It wasn't too bad, but I've seen it when it's really raining there. But with Whitesnake, we played there, and I think it was 8 or 10. I can't remember when it was, but it was a nice sunset. It was really Def Leppard was coming on after us, but I remember it was sunny during our set. It was good. It
does happen sometimes in the UK.
Not today. It's freaking cold.
It's cold and raining, horrible. Right after Lion, you did you do your a couple of solo albums after Lion, or did it go straight into Bad Moon Rising?
Lion broke up because we were trying to get off of our record deal we weren't happy with. We had made a pretty good record in '87, and it was doing really well on MTV. We had a video that was doing great, and we'd done well in areas where we had a different record company, like in Japan. We did really well. Record company was good. But in the States, it wasn't happening, and so we were trying to get off that deal, and somewhere along that line, Mark Edwards got injured in a motorcycle accident, and so the band broke up. Meanwhile, I had some offers for other gigs and stuff, like Dio and a band called Slaughter, and
so by that time you'd made a name for yourself.
Maybe, I mean, in LA maybe, but not maybe. I mean, maybe a little bit in Japan or something, but
No, I mean you yourself. That people were coming to you to join the band now.
Yeah, and there was a scene still happening in LA, although it was kind of dying out a little bit. But I just wanted Lion to work, so I kind of blew everything off, and the one that would have been really cool, because I ended up there later, was Dio. But I just didn't. I met with Ronnie and we played, and it was going great. And he's
at what point of Dio's career was that? Before Craig Goldie?
No, that was right after Craig. That was right after Craig did Dream Evil. I'm not sure why he left or whatever, but they were getting a new guy, and we played, and he offered me the job, and I just wasn't ready to leave Lion. I went down there because a friend of mine, Grover Jackson, the guitar builder, said, "You need to go do this. You need to go down and check this out. This could be really cool for you." And I really liked Dio, but I just wanted my band, and I didn't want to let my bros down too. You know, if a lot of times when people get offers to leave, it leaves other people in the lurch. You know, and so I just wasn't ready to do that. I was probably 20 something, and I was more like 15 at age, and the way I acted.
Right.
So I turned that stuff down. But Mark got injured, and then then I got a call to do a record with the band Hurricane. Yeah. So that's how that transition happened, and worked with those guys on a record. And then I started doing some sessions. I did House of Lords. Right. And then Cal and I took some of our songs that we had been holding back for our next record deal, and we started Bad Moon Rising with those songs, and we started with a Japanese record deal. So went from Lion to Hurricane to sessions, and then Bad Moon Rising.
But in the meantime, had you recorded solo albums?
After Bad Moon Rising did
Bad Moon Rising.
A couple. We did one or two records, I think, 2 records, and then I did a solo record.
And then Ronnie called you again.
Well, that was a little bit later. I went through a lot of different stuff, sessions and different things. But Ronnie called in 2001 and said that, well, Ronnie didn't call. Actually, Jimmy Bain and I had done a session together. Right. And he said that they had gotten Goldie back. They had Rowan Robertson for a while, then they got Goldie back, and they had Tracy G for a while. But Jimmy and I we hit it off again. You know, we just always hit it off. And he said, "You should join, you know, Ronnie's looking." And it took a few months before I actually heard from them. And finally, it was the day after Christmas, Jimmy said, "Let's go meet Ronnie at the pub." And Ronnie...
Where were you at the time?
I was in Los Angeles, and the pub was called the Robin Hood Pub. It's in the San Fernando Valley. But Ronnie loved everything English, and he loved pubs. He loved to...
So it was a traditional English pub?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So and the first day I met him, when I was 10 years earlier, when I was auditioning, after we played like one song, and then he said, "Let's go to the pub." And we went to a place called Bristol Arms or something, I forget. But yeah, he sat there, and we had a beer, and he said, "Well, I'm making this new record, and I want to see if you maybe want to play a couple solos on it or whatever." I said, "No, I'm not here to play a couple solos on it. I'm here to join the band and play all the guitars." And he says, "Okay, good. Start tomorrow."
Fantastic. So was he actually testing you at that point?
Maybe he was. I don't know, but you know, I just didn't want to waste any time. I'd been waiting. I was interested to play with him, and and Jimmy and I, like I said, we hit it off.
You hit it off with Jimmy, and obviously he was the main. He was the bass player right the way through Dio, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he might. There was maybe one period when he took a little vacation from the band, but yeah, he was Ronnie's right hand guy. So joined Dio and Ronnie. We hit it off too, and we had a great time in the studio. Ronnie would, I'll never forget, he would just sit there doing crossword puzzles all day long while I was playing guitar. And I'd say, you know, hey Ronnie, what'd you think of that? And he'd be like, what? Oh, play it for me, you know. He was really he was very intelligent.
Yeah.
And he could knock out a couple these like serious crossword puzzles in a few hours. So we did the record, Killing the Dragon, and then we commenced on a tour that it was good timing because hard rock and classic rock was making a comeback finally after a lot of stuff in the 90s that was just kind of going all over the place. That kind of music came back and it started right around that time, and our tour was a support tour for Deep Purple and Scorpions, so it was like perfect.
Wow, what a lineup.
Yeah, it was. When we started, sometimes it was still sunny out, and Ronnie would be like, it's very difficult for me to be evil with the sun out, you know. But by the time, every day, that whole tour sold out. We were playing these outdoor, they call them sheds in the U.S.
Yeah.
I don't know what they call them here, but outdoor amphitheaters.
Yeah.
And they were sold out, but by the time we got halfway through our set, even it was packed. And so by the time we got to the big songs like Holy Diver and Heaven and Hell and stuff like that, Rainbow in the Dark, it was packed. So Ronnie it was like he was just loving it. It was great.
Excellent. So how was you wrote a couple of songs? It's 2 or 3 songs on the album.
Yeah.
Killing the Dragon.
Yeah.
How was it writing with Ronnie?
Well, it was great. I showed up at the studio and there was a board. Usually when you're in the studio, people put a board up on the wall and they name the songs, and they put categories like guitars, bass, drums, vocals, whatever, and then you check them off as you're done. But there are only 8 songs, and I said, that's going to be a kind of a quick record, right, guys? And Ronnie said, no, we need 2 more songs. So Jimmy and I we took a day off one day, and he and I wrote 4 things, and then we brought them to Ronnie, and Ronnie picked 2 of them, and then we finished them together as a band. It was Scream was the main one that we really liked. It was kind of simple and heavy and kind of fit into, it was good at that point because they had already written some stuff with Craig Goldie, hadn't been recorded yet, but I could see where the record was going, and then I could also see what it needed. And Jimmy and I both worked on songs like that. So we worked on a slow, heavy thing, and then we worked on a fast, driving number. And yeah.
Cool. How long were you actually with Dio?
Basically, only that tour cycle, that album and tour cycle, was a year long. And then I came back a couple times after that.
Yeah, because you were with Whitesnake and then came back when Whitesnake had a break.
Yep.
You did some touring with Dio again, didn't you?
Yeah, Ronnie asked me to join a couple times to come back and join the tour, and then at the very end, we recorded the only other track I ever recorded with Ronnie. It was the last song he did. It's called Electra.
Right.
And that was just right before he found out he was sick.
Yeah.
So.
And that was the last song he recorded.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, he once he found out he was sick, he was 100%, trying to get that sorted, But it did, just like the doctors told him, 6 months basically to the day he passed, and they told him that, and he tried really hard to stretch that out. He did everything he could, and the doctors did everything they could, but it was just too late. It was too far advanced when he found out.
Awful. Absolutely awful.
Man, I still think about where I can picture him. I say this a lot in interviews and stuff. I can still picture him in his studio underneath his kitchen, and he'd just be sitting there for hours just creating. It was so cool to go over there. I'd go over there. Usually we'd start like 10 or something. We'd go and hang out in the kitchen. He'd always be playing sports radio. He loved the American sports.
Yeah.
Radio. We obviously didn't have European sports on this. He had this little, I mean, the guy was rich, but he had this little old transistor radio that had an antenna that was broken off and stuff.
Brilliant.
And living in this mansion, this English Tudor house that he lived in, stuck out like a sore thumb in that neighborhood. But it was perfect for him. It was up on a hill, and it had I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of it, but it had a spiral staircase with the, I forget the tube, what it's called, but it was very traditional English. And we'd go up, have a coffee or a drink or whatever in the morning, and then we'd go down to the studio, and he'd sit there, and it was awesome, man. We just, for hours, just creating stuff, and a lot of it wouldn't be used, but we'd go through a process.
Yeah.
And that was actually after I had joined, when I wrote with him proper like that, and we did a few things that never really came out, but that was after I had left and gone to Whitesnake. And originally Whitesnake was just going to be 2 months. That's what David wanted to do. He just wanted to kind of reintroduce the band and get it going again. He had taken time off to raise his son, Jasper, and he was ready to get back out, make some noise.
Were you recommended to David, or did he come straight to you from knowing your work in Dio?
He was recommended by, I think, a guitar player that he had worked with on his solo stuff. A guy called Doug Bossy, I think, recommended me. But he's told me that some other people were recommending me prior to that. But I'm not sure. But he said, well, first, it's a funny story, Mike, is that when we were on tour with Scorpions and Deep Purple, and later we toured with Purple a bunch in the summer, and we came to the UK and to Europe. But at one point, the Scorpions came to Ronnie and said that they were putting together a tour for 2003 with Whitesnake, including John Sykes and David getting together. And so me and Jimmy were like, yeah, that sounds good. And Ronnie was like, nope, I'm not going in to make a record. We're going to make a record, another record. I don't want to support anymore. And we've been supporting these guys. I want to get back to headlining a little bit. And so then I got a call from David's management, and he said that David wants to meet with you. And I said, and Ronnie had told me, he goes, look, people are going to be checking you out. This is a high-profile job, and you're doing well. So I said, well, I mean, I love working with you, Ronnie. So and David told me it was 2 months. So that's what I had initially signed up for. But 2 months it just kept going and going and going, and eventually I had to choose, and me and David, he's like, I mean, as much as Ronnie was my bro, but Ronnie was like, it was like David was really like my big brother, and I was so into what he had already created, and what I knew I could bring something to that, that was... You
had huge boots to fill in Whitesnake.
That's why I'm wearing these big
Absolutely, you've got huge boots on there, but
Pickle
in
boots.
Whitesnake, like you say, the last guitarist he had was John Sykes, before that Adrian Vandenberg, before that Steve Vai, before that Bernie Marsden and Mickey Moody. They were huge boots to fill. So did you feel the pressure?
No, and I didn't, because Ronnie groomed me. Ronnie put me through a lot of experiences that put me in a position where I was already pretty confident when I joined Dio, but I was confident enough to tell Ronnie, no, I'm not going to play 3 solos. I'm going to either do all of it or none of it. And he's like, okay. But no, I just, touring with Ronnie really built up my confidence, and he made me play better. He pushed me really hard to, not that I didn't have more to learn, which I definitely did, I always do. But he got me to a point where it was like I was really, really confident, and when David called, I knew that was, I was in Lion with Cal. It was, when I met David, I was like, this is almost, some of his mannerisms are the same as Cal's, like Cal really was into him. Like, we all get influenced by people. Like, I love Randy Rhoads, and I feel kind of kindred spirit to him, but and that's how Cal was with Coverdale. So getting together with Coverdale, it fit like a glove, and he was really nice to me. He really wanted me, but I go, before I went to meet him, I said, but you got Sykes, why would you want me? Because I'm not gonna play second to to Sykes. Obviously, you would if Sykes was in the band. And he says, no, I want you. And so I thought to myself, well, maybe the price was too high.
Yeah, possibly.
For Sykes. I don't know, but
he's just making a comeback, John Sykes.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I saw him in January at the NAMM show. John Sykes is, him and David always have a little bit of a. They always had a little bit of a competition thing, but they were a great team, and David will be the first to admit it. And when he said I want you, I was like, that's perfect. I'll be able to fit right in. And then we got Reb, and that was great. And with Tommy and Marco and Tim Drury on keyboards, it was a really good lineup to kind of reintroduce the band. I really wanted to make sure that we were trying to get back a little bit to the bluesy side.
I was going to ask what it was like playing because you, like I mentioned earlier, you're a bluesy guitar player. You rock out, but you're a bluesy guitar player as well. Did you prefer playing the blues, the early Whitesnake, the Mickey Moody, Bernie Marsden type songs, or more the John Sykes, Steve Vai, Adrian Vandenberg, 1987 songs?
It was all good. I mean, of course, all guitar players love the riff of Still the Night. So that's like when Joel Hoekstra came to me when I first met him, when I was in the band, he goes, "What's it like to play Still the Night?" I'm like, "It's great, man." He goes, "Oh man, you play it every night." And little did we both know that he would be in the band.
End up doing it,
But which I'm really happy for him, But I loved it all. I loved playing the song "Ready and Willing." That was and Slow and Easy, and some of that stuff that also Mel Galley wrote some stuff.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And that early stuff really was fun to play because I had already heard it, and but it was always a weird thing. Like we'd have a set list in the States that was geared around the 87 and 85 stuff, and then in Europe we'd sprinkle in a little bit more of the older stuff. But we'd talked about it a lot, but we never delved as deep as I now in hindsight wished we would have to the older stuff.
Some of the older stuff is absolutely, because that's when I first got into Whitesnake. During the older period, I loved the Bernie Marsden, Mickey Moody period.
Me too, and so I wanted to keep that intact and get more playing slide and doing stuff like that when I got in the band, and then later when we started writing, we eventually got into a good kind of hybrid thing that kind of it touched on the 87-ish type stuff, but it also was kind of had a newer thing to it, but it was also blues based, like some of the songs on Good to Be Bad, for example, were more bluesy, I guess, than what was on Slip of the Tongue, for example. So it was cool. It was good.